It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC 256. We got a big boy card here. Get the flyweight title on the line once again in only a matter of weeks. And we got a big lightweight fight taking place. Big implications for the lightweight division with Tony Ferguson taking on Charles do Bronx Oliveira. I'm extremely excited for that matchup. And other than that, this card is stacked. I really feel this is a dope card. A lot of intriguing matchups, as I'm sure a lot of you guys agree. We take a look through the card. Rafael Fiziev coming off a big win, getting matched up with Renato Moicano. Kevin Holland taking on the veteran and Jacare Souza. JDS versus Ciryl Gane. Daniel Pineda versus Cub Swanson's an excellent fight. That's a sleeper fight right there. Mackenzie Dern taking on Virna Jandiroba. Two excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners squaring off. And the list continues even towards the bottom. We got some entertaining fights here. You guys know Chase Hooper is a big fan favorite. He's fighting Peter Barrett. That's a solid fight. And once we get into this breakdown, we'll be popping things off with that fight there. And UFC 256 is a good one. You guys know the routine, though. We got to take a look back at this past weekend. We had a hell of a middleweight bout that took place. Marvin Vettori versus Jack Hermansson. You guys know that was a fight that I was very much looking forward to. And it sure did deliver. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. In the first fight, we had Jake Collier taking on Jean Vellante. Now, this was the first bet that I had taken place on the card. So my night did not start off well. And just to elaborate on that, I initially had 4 plays on this card, and 2 of those plays were scrapped. The day of the fight. So it was really a reckless day, if you ask me. Up until things finally settle down, which we'll get to. But so 2 of my plays were scratched. You guys can imagine what those plays were. Three fights scratched the day of the fight. Then I had a 2-unit play here on Jean Vellante. I did take Vellante over Jay Collier. I know some people are going to talk crap about that pick, man, but I stay true to that pick. Jean Vellante is a guy that was a natural light heavyweight fighter. He's a big boy. He played linebacker in college. I think that he delivers when he steps in there for the most part. I do get it. I know he's not the most polished fighter. I know he's reckless. He's not the most professional. But now he's taking on a guy in Jake Collier that used to fight, in the welterweight division, the middleweight division, and which is, his natural weight division where he should be fighting. All of a sudden disappears forever, comes back to the UFC fighting in the heavyweight division, tipping the scales at 265. Looks completely out of shape. He returns back to the UFC, gets knocked out within seconds. Now, I know the guy that knocked him out, Tom Aspinall, is legit, but still, he looked horrible in there. He tried to throw some kicks. His leg, he could barely lift his leg in the air. I had to fade him there. I waited till I got a decent line on Vellante as well. I got it right around -185, and I thought I had a little something there. Collier had to prove to me that he can make it even out of the first round without gassing out. And but the fight played out the exact opposite. Vellante was the one that was gassing out more so. Collier looked very good with his combinations, and he showed that some of these guys can bump up in weight and still look legit. They can hold their technique, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, how he holds so much weight and still looking to be in good shape. But shout out to Jay Collier. He spoiled my 2-unit play there. In the next fight, we had Ilya Topuria versus Damon Jackson. This was a fight I was frustrated with. I did want to pull the trigger on Topuria, but I did not. I was monitoring the line. I was watching it when it was creeping up towards the mid 200s, and I hesitated. And I was hoping it was going to come back down so I can grab on it. But that was never the case, and the line exploded up to the -300s. So I just sat that one out. I do feel Damon Jackson's a legit fighter, but that was definitely a mistake on my part. Topuria is the real deal. You see his management and all these guys. Everyone's talking about this guy being a future champion. There's a reason why they're talking about him like that. He delivered, so definitely regretted that. All right, so then we had Luis Smoka, who took out Jose Alberto Quinoas. I thought Quinoas was looking good up until all of a sudden he got judo tripped down to the mat and then ground and pounded for a Luis Smoka victory. Jordan Levitt takes out Matt Wyman. What an absolute nasty finish by Levitt, man. That guy is an interesting dude. Kind of awkward if you ask me, but he's intriguing. He makes me want to watch him again. I'm really interested to see him step back in there soon. I do think that he's gonna run into the wrong guy inside the UFC and he's gonna get beat up. I think when there's a strong wrestler who knows how to avoid the submissions, I think he'll be in some trouble. And as far as the striking goes too, a good wrestler that can strike, I think Levitt will eventually show his cards. But as of now, he's 8-0 and just had one of the nastiest finishes I've ever seen. Which if you guys haven't seen it, make sure you go pull the video up and watch that. Matt Wyman was basically kind of holding guard, trying to make a decision what he was going to do there. If he's going to put his arm in the post, decided to kind of hold on. And Levitt used his forearm, put it on his neck, and slammed him right on his head. It was a beautiful knockout. We had Roman Dolage taking out John Alon. And Roman, I was on him. I told you the Georgian fighters are legit. And it says it's a split decision here. That was a complete joke. It was easily 29-28. That's what it should have been. It should have been a unanimous decision for Roman. And I told you that guy is confident, he's talented, and he's a good fighter. We had Gabriel Benitez, who took out Justin James. Justin James, I think he was just riding high on that hype from getting that first knockout in his UFC debut. But, he is a tough fighter, but I don't know if he's really on the level, man. I don't know if he'll be hanging out in the UFC much longer. He is an entertaining fighter, but Benitez starched him there. Then we had Jamal Hill, who took out OSP. OSP went out there last time, and he shined against the young up-and-comer and Alonzo Menafield, not against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill was way too quick for him. He looked good in there. Jamal Hill looked very good, and he got the finish there in the second round. Now we get to my second and final play of the card. You guys already know what it was. Marvin Vettori. I had a 4-unit play on Marvin. Caught him at -135. I felt extremely confident in Marvin going into this fight, especially at where the line was. I do have a lot of respect for Jack Hermanson, but I felt confident Marvin would be able to keep this fight on the feet, and he would be the much better striker, where he would out-volume Hermanson and pull off the victory. And that's exactly what happened. Marvin Vettori is a guy training at a King's MMA. This guy is really refining his skills. He's young, and he's only going to get better and better. He's an extremely professional fighter. We saw it in the Carl Robertson fight. All that, the crap talk back and forth and whatnot. At the end of the day, you saw how professional Vettori is and how far along his grappling is coming as well. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and that made it another profitable event for me. Profited roughly 1.5 units, and I thought it could have been a much better night if I would have had my other 2 plays to work with. Obviously, I wasn't crazy about the Volante loss, but it's all good. We take the money and we move on to the next card. UFC 256, as we already brushed upon it, it is a very, very stacked card. Excited to break down each and every single one of these fights with you boys, and I always appreciate all you guys tuning in, so I want to let you guys know that first and foremost before we get into it. And a special shout out to everybody that looked out and went over to my other channel that's just being started up, Sports Betting Weekly. Appreciate all you guys hitting that sub button. We will be putting out a video later today or by tomorrow of a specific football bet, an NFL bet, and also a college football bet. It'll be a dual video, or I'll put them separately, either way. But you'll see those videos posted there. And I highly recommend you guys check those videos out and touch upon those plays, because I'm going to capitalize and make some money on those games there. So again, though, appreciate everyone going over there, hitting that sub button, following the Instagram, and you guys will all start to see this channel unravel right before your eyes. So that will start this week. All right, guys. Now, you guys know what time it is. It is UFC 256. And with no further ado, we're going to get right into the first fight. We got a good one. Chase Hooper taking on Peter Barrett. Fight taking place in the featherweight division. Chase Hooper goes by the nickname The Dream. I think he needs to intertwine some of that Eminem stuff into his nickname, because everyone knows him as the Eminem boy. Chase Hooper, if you guys aren't familiar with him, he's the youngest fighter in the UFC. He made a name for himself on Dana White's Contender Series. Went out, won a couple other fights before even making his debut in the UFC. And, he's been looking decent up until his last fight against Bruce Leroy. Chase Hooper is a guy, he's kind of one-dimensional at this point. A very, very talented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player. This guy's very good with the submissions, and also he's very good with his ground control, man. He could put you in some compromising positions where he can TKO you. He can flatten you out and ground and pound you. Doesn't carry a lot of power though. I mean, even when you see him getting those superior positions, it's more of a volume thing. He's going to start just brutalizing you until the ref has to stop it. He'll cut you open. Has some decent elbows. One thing that I like that we've been seeing from Chase Hooper is that he's been working with Ben Askren. So, that is a good thing. You see him. He's been hanging out with Ben Askren for quite some time. I feel like it started off as kind of like a joke about how he looked like his son or whatnot. But it ended up playing out that, he's spending time over there and working on his wrestling game with Ben Askren. That's a great thing, because if he can get his wrestling up to par where he can drag guys down to the mat and then use his BJJ, he's going to be a major problem. I think it might still be a work in process, though. A work in progress. It might take some time. Like I said, he's so young still, and did not look good in his last fight against Alex Caceres. You guys know I got much respect for Alex Caceres. I've had him on my show. I think he's a talented dude, but I'm not crazy over the skills that Bruce Leroy brings to the table. And I know he is hitting his peak as far as he's looked the best he's looked. But the way that he made Chase Hooper look in that last fight, in my opinion, it's a red flag on Chase Hooper. Also, in this Dana White's Contender Series fight, before coming back and winning that fight, Chase Hooper was getting beat up there as well. So keep that in mind. And then you got this guy, Peter Barrett, who's coming off a loss against a very tough customer in Yusuf Zalal. But Peter Barrett was never out in that fight. He got dropped. He got hurt a couple times. He's a very game fighter. Continued to walk forward. Very impressed with his heart. Even on Dana White's Contender Series, where he also made his debut, showed in that fight. He came back in that fight. He got hurt as well. Came back. He has decent wrestling. He's decently strong. The striking needs to be polished up, but he's a tough customer. And I think that the line is off. You take a look at the line. Chase Hooper is right around minus 400. What happens if Peter Barrett's able to stuff the takedowns, keep this fight standing, and is able to drop some heavy hooks on Hooper and hurt him? I don't think that Peter Barrett wants to play the jiu-jitsu game, especially early when they're dry. I think Hooper could really take advantage of that and pull off a sub quickly. Or maybe he uses his ground skills to also hurt Barrett when they're tired late in the fight. But I think the line is off, and I slightly pick Hooper. I slightly edge Hooper to win this fight. But again, Peter Barrett, not the most talented fighter, but he is tough. I think it's just a really interesting match. I'm really, really intrigued to see how this fight goes. I think it can go a couple different ways. Hooper can go out there, he could shine, and everybody could say, "Oh, that was so obvious. Why were you doubting him?" But it's a game of inches. If Barrett's able to stuff those takedowns and able to make Hooper look bad on the feet, which is not that hard to do, Hooper maybe takes a decision himself, or even gets a stoppage. Hooper is susceptible to being hurt. So I have a slight lean on Hooper right now. Keep in mind, man, Barrett, 34 years old, a lot of experience. He has 15 fights compared to Hooper's 11. Not so many more fights, but this guy, he's 34 years old. He's been around the game for a little bit now too. So I give the experience to Barrett at this point as far as the overall MMA game. Even though Hooper's been on the mats a lot, but that's the way we'll go there. Slight lean on Hooper. Right, we'll work our way right back over to the welterweight division. We got Dwight Grant taking on Jingliang Li, the Leech. The Leech is a guy a lot of people were high on, for quite some time. He was going into that fight against Neil Magny. A lot of people were high on him there. Neil Magny shut that down. Dwight Grant is a guy that, reminds me of Neil Magny in some regards. They're kind of lanky. Or maybe I wouldn't say lanky, but they got some, some reach on them. You see Grant coming in with this 76.5-inch reach here. He's going to have the reach advantage. He's a very game, crafty fighter. He can grapple as well. Training at an AKA, one of the best camps, around. He is coming off a tough loss, man, against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. Don't forget, he hurt D-Rod in that fight. That was a fight. He hurt him. He almost stopped D-Rod early, but D-Rod showed how tough he was, came back, and then he got the knockout. One of the most exciting fights you would have seen this year if you guys saw that fight. But Grant is a very capable fighter. Very calm, very relaxed in there. Doesn't rush anything. We've seen Grant shine and taking out Alan Jouban. You see Jouban still doing his thing, just pulled off a big victory. Carlo Pedersoli, that was a nice fight. He was the dog there, and he knocked Pedersoli out, the talented Italian striker. He's 36 years old. I mean, this is make or break for Dwight Grant as far as I'm concerned. He needs to get a victory here. He doesn't need to have 2 losses, stringing off 2 losses in a row, creeping up on 37. And then you got the Leech. The Leech is a solid fighter. He has that killer instinct. He carries power in his hands, good striking. He's a good fighter, man, fighting at a China top team. He does drop the ball once in a while. We saw Jake Matthews handle business against him and Neil Magny. But again, those are 2 fighters that are very good fighters. What else? Other than that, yeah, he's been handling business. Ever since the Nakamura submission loss that he had, he's been just handling business. Took out Bobby Nash, Frank Camacho, Zach Otto, David Zawada. Probably the biggest win that he's had was the Zaleski finish where he knocked out Zaleski. And that was a fight, though. He was getting beat up a little bit, if I remember correctly. If you guys run the tape back, he was getting tagged a lot, and Zaleski ended up handling business in the 3rd round there. So, not a lot of big names, really. I mean, I guess some okay names, but I wouldn't say the resume is that big, really, when you look at it. He did lose the fights that he really needed to win to really have that respect, in my opinion. So, going into this fight, I do think that Grant's live. I think that Grant is a good fighter. See the Leech here over in Vegas getting it in. I'm kind of pulling for the Leech too, man. He has a little bit of a personality, and it's a tough fight though. This is another fight where I feel like the line may be a little bit off. I mean, this might be a card where you might want to value the dogs. Grant right around plus 175. You see a little bit of action coming in on him now. I think that Grant is more than game to hang around, and I'm going to take the Leech as of right now. That's a slight lean on the Leech, so the line is not indicative of how I see this fight playing out. I have a slight lean on the Leech. And keep an eye on that reach advantage that Grant has. All right, and the next fight. They always do this to me, man. They just swap the card around a little bit on us. No worries, though. So we got Sergey Spivak taking on Jared Vanderaa. Now, this fight was a little bit up the card a little bit, so dropped down towards the beginning of the card. Obviously, if you guys saw Jared's Dana White's Contender Series victory that he just had not too long ago, he was calling for this fight, called out Sergey Spivak after he pulled off a very nice victory over Harry Hunsucker, where he used his ground skills to get the finish there. 80-inch reach. He has a 2-inch reach advantage here. He's 6'4". He is a big boy. Jared is a big boy. 11-4. I think he's a solid fighter. Sergey Spivak, on the other hand, this is a guy that had a lot of hype when he was coming into the UFC. The polar bear. He's only 25 years old. Keep that in mind. Only 25 years old, and he's coming off a nice victory over Carlos Felipe, where he was, able to completely nullify him there. Felipe has shown he's a good boxer, and Spivak pretty much did what he wanted in that fight. He played it very smart and used his grappling skills. Gotta love the tattoo there, man. That tattoo is dope. The polar bear, by the way, in my opinion, I think the polar bear might be the most ruthless animal on land. I think a polar bear probably takes out a lion, a tiger, all that. The polar bear being the biggest bear and the most antisocial, ruthless animal that just kills anything that it comes near. But just to touch upon the polar bear, that's a pretty dope nickname. But that's not the reason why I'm picking him here. I'm going to pick him just because, he's young. He's shown some signs to me that he has some real talent. And I think that at his age, he's going to grow. I like that age, man. You see the skills jump up and up. I know Jared's only 28, so he's sitting there right at his prime as well. This is a big fight. This is a fight that he called for, so maybe he sees something. Keep that in mind too, man. When you're calling a fighter out, you pretty much you want that fight for a reason. There's a reason. If there's no bad blood or there's no beef, he was calling him out. He thinks that this guy has somewhat of a name, but he can exploit him. And got to be careful with these heavyweight fights, man. We've seen it recently. A lot of these heavyweight fights play out closely. Dogs come through. And right now, Sergey Spivak is creeping up to that minus 230 range. I do feel like that's a little high, if you ask me. Look, it just looks kind of similar to what we've seen the last couple of weeks. But I do edge him to win this fight, man. Again, this is another fight where I'm edging the fighter that's the pretty hefty favorite. I do think that he should win the fight, or all three of them should win their fights. But again, this is the fight game. Anything could happen in there. And I particularly think that these dogs that they're fighting against have real shots to win the fights. So would not be surprised in the least bit, if Jared shows up. And again, man, Jared is a competent fighter. He's well-rounded, and he's a big boy. So funny personality, too, if you saw his interview after he pulled off the victory in his last fight. But I will pick Sergey Spivak. I have to go with Sergey there. All right, so now we got Billy Q taking on Gavin Tucker. Now this is a good fight. Two guys that have a lot of potential. Two guys that really don't have, overwhelming amount of experience for their age. Gavin Tucker being 34 years old, Billy Q being 32. These guys were guys that, in my mind, it's a little bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen these guys be at where they're at right now, right around 26, 27. Because I don't know how many years they're going to have left in the game. Gavin Tucker is a guy, if you guys remember his debut when he took on Sam Cecilia and absolutely styled on him. He looked like he was in the Matrix in there. He was mixing up with beautiful calf kicks, throwing knees up the middle. The hands were so accurate, so quick, working from the southpaw stance as well and all that. Just a very tricky fighter. I was expecting to see big things from him moving forward. And if you guys remember what happened, he ended up getting clipped by Rick Glenn early in a fight where he didn't get knocked out, unfortunately for him, because he ended up just getting beat down for 3 rounds, and one of the worst beatdowns I've ever seen in the UFC, as far as from beginning to end. He had to take some time off, man. So, from that fight, that was 3 years ago. It took him over a year and a half, over a year and a half to get back in there, a little over a year and a half. And bounced back in there, took out Singwoo Choi, the tall Korean fighter, looked good in that fight, got the rear naked choke, and then he just got a victory over Justin James as well. That was a very entertaining fight. So you're seeing that he's getting the ball rolling again. This kid does have the potential to be a very good fighter. But now he's fighting Billy Q. Billy Q is an extremely talented fighter that's of a more refined version of Rick Glenn. So you better hope that Billy Q doesn't hurt him early, and he'll probably get the finish there. But Billy Q has excellent grappling abilities, extremely durable, very good cardio. He's going to be around there the entire fight, training over there in Tampa. He's boys with Matt Frivola. You guys know we had Matt Frivola on the show. They've been training together nonstop. I mean, those are two young, hungry guys. Frivola being a tough wrestler. Billy's working on his wrestling with him and whatnot. And Billy Q's coming off a nice win over Spike Carlisle. He took Spike Carlisle out, and then he bounced back with the victory over Kyle Nelson, where Kyle Nelson's a tough customer too, and he got him out of there. I'm taking Billy Q here. I think that if Gavin Tucker does show up, if he can avoid getting tagged up a little bit, maybe he's able to shine out there. But I just think that this is going to be a dog fight. I think Billy Q is going to land his shots. I think he's going to be just a little bit tougher in there and a little bit quicker to the punch. Just a little bit of the better fighter. I think Billy Q has a little bit more potential. I like this kid at 32 years old too, a little bit more towards his prime. It's going to be coming into the fight with a 4-inch height advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage. He's a more naturally bigger guy, and I'm taking Billy Q to win the fight. And there he is with Matt Frivola over there getting it in. I like these guys over there, man. These guys are serious, and like I said, Billy Q is very, very competent on the mat. So I would like to see this fight hit the mat, and you can see what he's all about down there as well. Good striking. Solid fighter that you're going to want to keep your eye on. And as far as the line goes, Billy Q, it's pretty much a pick 'em right now, which is understandable because I do respect the skills that Gavin Tucker does bring to the table as well. And Gavin Tucker can easily go in there and pull off the victory. But I like Billy Q. All right, how about this one? Mackenzie Dern taking on Virna Jandiroba. This is a perfectly matched up fight right here. Great work by the UFC. Not trying to shelter Mackenzie or do anything stupid like that. They're throwing her in there, trying to put her in some entertaining fights. Virna Jandiroba is an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Guys, if you've been paying attention to what she brings to the table, you see her in there, man. She gets these girls down to the mat, styles on them down there, submits them left and right, gets positioned. She could hurt them on the mat. She's 16-1 with her only loss coming to Carla Esparza, the inaugural champion of the division. Bounced back with a nice victory over Mallory Martin and Felice Herrig, where she was able to just go out there and sub those girls like it was nothing, which is so impressive. That's the whole thing, just pulling off, 3 subs in her last 3 victories. Mackenzie Dern obviously is absolutely no joke on the mat. Some of the best submission skills that have ever blessed, the UFC as far as, women's MMA in the division. Mackenzie Dern grew up in BJJ. Her dad is a very decorated, participant of the sport. And Mackenzie Dern has been trying to work on her striking here and there, but we'll never forget what happened to her in the Amanda Ribas fight, where she got beat down bad. Did bounce back with 2 victories, but these girls, in my opinion, gave her submissions. You got to give her credit for pulling them off. But if you remember this fight, we'll start off with the Hannah Cifers fight. Hannah Cifers had no business going down to the mat with her, or she kind of tried to stand up but left her knee in there. I mean, she should have completely got space. If you remember, Hannah Cifers was trolling the clinch. She was strong in there. Should have waited till they got sweaty and just try to keep it a stand-up fight. And then you had Randa Marcos, who completely just gave her arm up. Again, another fight that she actually had ample time to stand back up and separate, and she sat right in there and she got subbed. So I don't see Virna necessarily being in trouble like that down there. She's very competent. I could see her avoiding the submission. Virna's also tough, with her striking. She's been working on her striking, and excuse me. Let me get back to. Yeah, this was against Felice Herrig. But Virna is a girl that she's a little stiff in there, but she's working on her striking, and it's not half bad. She's very tough. She's gonna walk forward, carries a little bit of power in her hands. It's a little stiff, but she's a tough chick. I'm telling you right now. These girls in the division don't want to fight her. She's been handling business. This is nothing new. She's been fighting over in Invicta, right? Over in Invicta for some time. I believe she may have even been a champion over there. Yeah, she's fighting in Invicta there. She got about 3 fights over there. Took out the tough Japanese fighter in a split decision victory there. UFC caliber fighter, and I believe she was a champion. But again, this is a girl. She's come. All right, let's talk about the line here real quick. Talk about another live dog, a potential live dog. Jandiroba is right around plus 150. Bet 365. Bovada plus 155, plus 150. So it looks like a little bit of money's coming in on her, but this will be an interesting line to monitor. People, they like Mackenzie Dern. She has the big name. Mackenzie Dern is extremely dangerous on the mat. I do need to touch upon that a little bit as well. As far as Jandiroba being as game as she is, Dern can easily go in there and pull off the sub. Like I said, she's amazing down there. I think that Dern will be a little bit quicker on the feet, a little bit quicker with her movement, a little bit more athletic, but not necessarily the best striker. And it's all in the making with her. She's been refining those skills. She's been working on those skills. We've seen some small flashes of her striking. We've seen her drop. I think it was Amanda Cooper or one of those girls. She dropped her. She had a baby not too long ago. She's been back now for some time, and this is gonna be a good fight. That's what I think. I'm gonna pick Jandiroba to win the fight. I like this girl here. She's 16-1. She has more experience as far as the MMA game goes, and taking Virna Jandiroba to win the fight. Really want to see that fight hit the mat as well. I really do. By the way, too, the reaches and height pretty much the same. Nothing really going on there. All right, we got Cub Swanson taking on Daniel Pineda. Another guy that's actually really both these guys have been around for a long time. Cub Swanson, though, particularly, man, from the WEC days. If you guys remember, I always like to touch upon that because I'm a big WEC fan. Cub Swanson was a staple of the WEC, one of the more entertaining guys over there. Cub Swanson, now he is 37 years old. He's up there in age. He's kind of been having a hard time pulling off victories inside the UFC. For being honest, he was on a 4-fight losing streak, and then he took out Kron Gracie. I was there for that fight. That was a year and a month ago. That's crazy. I was at that fight, And I thought Kron Gracie was going to handle business. I thought Kron could have pulled off the submission. We've seen Cub, subbed by guys like Ortega and whatnot. But Cub Swanson is a black belt. He is a black belt with his jiu-jitsu. He's capable for sure. Cub Swanson's a little bit wild with the striking. His form and his technique's not always the most polished. And I think a guy like Daniel Pineda can give him trouble because Pineda is hitting his peak right now. This guy really has it going. If you remember, Daniel Pineda, was a Bellator veteran that, people really didn't think much of, back in Bellator, fighting guys like Emmanuel Sanchez, Georgie Karakanian. By the way, Sanchez is a beast. But again, doing his thing, legacy fighting, Bellator, just fighting nonstop, man. Look, how many professional fights this guy's had. Fights over in the professional fight league where he handled business, man. He took these guys out in one night. And these guys are very talented. Jeremy Kennedy and Movlid. This guy's legit as well. Very legit. Let me just show you guys how legit this guy is. 15-0-1. This guy, the killer. He's a tough Russian fighter. But Pineda took him out as well. Now, the only issue was he did pop for performance-enhancing drugs. So I was actually very curious to see how his UFC fight against Herbert Burns was going to go down, because Herbert Burns is a very talented fighter. And, the whole... failing a drug test is a major red flag for me as far as I'm concerned, because now they're keeping an eye on him. We're going to see if we see any major changes in his game. That was not the case. It was not the case at all. Pineda goes out there. He's working Herbert Burns on the mat, and eventually getting the stoppage there. Pineda has power in his hands, and this is a guy that's just been grinding, and has really just never gave up on the game, and you see his skills coming all the way around, and he's about to be one of the top fighters in the world. He's working his way up towards the top, being one of the top fighters in the world, fighting in the UFC, taking out guys like Herbert Burns. You go in there, maybe he starches Cub Swanson, and people start paying attention to this guy's name. So this is a big fight for him, a very big fight. Cub Swanson, even though he hasn't been winning all his fights as of recently, like we talked about, Cub Swanson is a name in the game. And, Daniel Pineda is very well deserving of a fight like this, man. This guy's a grinder. And I think Pineda's going to go out there, and I think he's going to handle business. I think he takes out Cub Swanson. As far as the line goes, I think Pineda's like right around -150 right now. You could have got him at -130 not too long ago. Interesting line. It was at -160. It started to drop. So you would actually, you wanted to keep an eye on it, see which way it was going to go, but it came back down. And, there's some big Cub Swanson fans out there. It's just, Cub Swanson, the WEC vet. Look at him back then, 13-2, fighting out of Orange County. Grew up in the juvenile halls. I'm a big fan of his game. You want to see him in his prime, man, or maybe not necessarily his prime, but you want to see him back in the WEC days, laying dudes out when he was a young buck. Some fun fights to watch. So, yeah, man, I got Pineda here. Pineda will be my pick, and this will be an interesting fight. It'll be an interesting fight to see how it plays out. Just keep in mind when you're looking at what Pineda's been doing recently, you see those two little gray draws. Flip those into nice green W's, and look at what he's been doing as of recently. He's been handling business. Okay. So I see what happened here. You guys said I was telling you earlier how the card got moved around. So this was very recently. Carl Robertson and Dalsha Lungambula, the tough African fighter, that fight is scratched. So that fight is scratched. Robertson tested positive for COVID. Another fighter testing positive for COVID, man. It's crazy. I really hope that this card doesn't get dismantled by COVID. This is a card that I really want to see play out all these fights. So. All right, now we're going to go over to the next fight. We're hitting the main card. We got JDS, Junior Dos Santos, the ex-heavyweight champion of the world, taking on a guy in Ciryl Gane that has high hopes to be a future UFC champion of the world, and a lot of people would probably back that up. Ciryl Gane, Boone Gaiman, has looked absolutely amazing since making his UFC debut, fighting out of the MMA Factory. Let's start off with his physique. 6'4", 83-inch reach. This guy is a physical specimen. Now let's talk about the skills that he brings to the table. This guy is an extremely polished striker. You don't see fighters move the way that he does at his size. You don't see it at all. And this guy's been training striking for so long that it's second nature to him too. So this isn't a guy that's just trying to work on his striking. This guy is a natural striker, and he's going to be knocking dudes out left and right. But what does he do? Ever since he makes his UFC debut, you know what he does? He goes in there and he's been subbing guys. He's been subbing guys left and right. So it's not even like he's just one-dimensional. This guy has shown some flashes. We saw him pull off a heel hook on Dontel Mays. Rafael Pessoa pulls off the arm triangle, and then had that tough fight with Tanner Boser where he really shined in that fight. People were giving Boser a lot of credit because he survived and took that fight on short notice. When you run the tape back on that fight, Gane was just styling on him, just showing his skills. It was like a sparring match where he was just showing his ability. So to me, that was impressive, if you ask me. Only 6-0, though, taking on a guy that has 29 professional fights, Junior Dos Santos. You see, this is what he's looking like as of recently. Was definitely on performance-enhancing drugs back in the day. I mean, I'm going to say that right now. If you remember how Junior Dos Santos looked back in the day, actually, you might be able to get a glimpse of it right here. Oh, there he is. Come on, look at JDS, man. Look at the physique this guy had. But again, back then it was the Wild West. Everyone was doing all types of stuff. But this was one of the guys that his career kind of slowed down once they started, doing all the drug testing and whatnot. Junior has great boxing. He definitely still has great boxing. He's over here at American Top Team. He's really settled in over at ATT, which is a great camp. As far as what he's been doing as of recently, though, coming off 3 losses, got knocked out by Francis, got knocked out by Jairzinho, got finished by Curtis Blades. I mean, this is the cream of the crop in the division. He did have an impressive victory over Derek Lewis, where he was able to survive, use his grappling, and actually get a finish himself. So this is how I see this fight going. Junior Dos Santos has to keep this fight from just remaining on the feet for 15 minutes. I think he's going to get tagged on the feet eventually, and I just don't see him winning a decision there either. I do know JDS has nice boxing. He's quick and whatnot. I just don't see it, though. I just think that Gane is way more well-rounded on the feet. He has more weapons, and I think he'll win a decision or knock JDS out. I think JDS is going to have to try to make this fight into a war, or just an overall mixed up fight, man, a mixed martial arts fight. Striking mix into the wrestling, and he's gonna have to try to show some holes in Ciryl Gane's game. He's gonna have to try to get this fight to the mat. Maybe he ends up, mounting or taking Ciryl Gane's back and gets a finish there. That's my thoughts on this fight. Other than that, I see Ciryl Gane starching Junior Dos Santos. I think Gane is gonna surprise people with his grappling abilities. I think that he's a guy that, like I said, he's been working on his overall game, and I think he's very athletic. And I think that if JDS just runs in trying to take him down, he's gonna get hurt. That's kind of what I see. Maybe we see something like that. It's over there at the MMA Factory. It's a good gym too. Working with guys, like Francis Ngannou, some other big names out there, some killers. So I do like what they're doing out there. And I got Ciryl Gane. The line is high. You would have had to have probably grabbed this early if you want to throw it in a parlay or whatnot. You got to be careful. If the line gets up there too much. I seen it hit like minus 450 now. You could have got it at minus 380. Who knows where that line's going to be by the time the fights kick off as well. So I was going to talk about the Carl Robertson fight, but let me just touch upon, this was when he squared off with Marvin Vettori. Big shout out to Marvin Vettori. But we won't be talking about Carl Robertson. But again, Carl Robertson's a legit fighter. I hope he's doing okay with testing positive for COVID. I hope he's doing all right. But don't forget what Marvin Vettori did to him. That was another fight people were doubting my boy. My Mediterranean brother Marvin Vettori was going to be fighting for gold soon. Running through the rankings. Going all the way to the top pretty quick, right? Being ranked number 12, going all the way up to the top 5 now. Just want to touch upon that real quick. There's Dolce, but we won't be talking about that fight. So, Ciryl Gane is the pick. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you guys are out there picking JDS. And I see what you guys are talking about, but we'll see how that fight goes. We got Kevin Holland taking on Jacare Souza. Kevin Holland, the Trailblazer. This guy is really making a name for himself right now on a 4-fight win streak. knocked out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, knocked out Joaquin Buckley, who's shown he's legit. Took out Darren Stewart. Now, that was a fight where he faded towards the end of that fight. Remember, Darren Stewart beat him up in the third round and was ground and pounding him to end that fight. Charlie Ontiveros, that guy is not even UFC. He's not UFC caliber. He took that fight on short notice to try to help the show out. So that was a fight that should have probably never even happened. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I like when the UFC does that. It was the right thing to do, but they were not on the same level. And, you know, the poor guy got hurt in there, man. He was unconscious. And I think he had to get taken out in a stretcher. Now, let's run the tape back a little bit further. Kevin Holland has been fighting often. You know, we're not going back that far. You know, the Brendan Allen loss was just about a year ago. Brendan Allen showed that even though Holland is very skilled on the mat, you know, Brendan Allen went out there and, you know, took him down, rear naked choked him. So that was his one little loss that he had. Besides the Thiago Santos fight, that was up a weight class. Took that fight on short notice too, so no shame there. Other than that, though, he's been handling business. The Mearshart fight was a little bit close. Jacare Souza, one of the best BJJ players that has ever fought in MMA, the ex-Strikeforce champion, completely, revolutionized his game. You know, he ended up becoming a nasty striker. He was knocking dudes out as well. We've seen him knock out Weidman recently, knocked out Brunson. Did he knock out Brunson twice? Yes, he did. Knocked out Brunson twice. Didn't he finish Chris Camozzi twice? Yes, he did. Submitted Chris Camozzi twice. Finished Gegard Mousasi. The Yoel Romero fight at that time was a very, very high-level fight. That was a split decision loss for him. That was a very high-caliber fight. Took out Vitor Belfort, Tim Bosch. And you look at his losses. The champion, Jan Blachowicz, it was a split decision loss. Jack Hermanson. You guys are all so high on Jack Hermanson, so you don't even get me started. A lot of big Hermanson fans have been coming out the woodwork. Kelvin Gastelum split. That fight could have went his way. Close fight. Kelvin, one of the best in the game. Robert Whittaker, he lost to. We're talking about top-level talent here. Now, in this fight with Kevin Holland, I think Jacare is going to be a little bit of the stronger guy, where I give Holland the speed and the athleticism advantage. Now, if Jacare can get those takedowns, maybe pull off a sub, or if he can consistently get those takedowns even later in the fight, I could see Jacare, taking the victory here, man. He's still in phenomenal shape. But if Kevin Holland's able to avoid all that, Kevin Holland, I think he's going to be so much quicker in there. He's going to be lighting him up on the feet. It really comes down to those takedowns. I really believe that. It really comes down to those takedowns. Holland is a very game fighter, though. Now, this is a fight I'm torn on, man. Really torn on. A lot of action has been coming in on Jacare. If you guys have been monitoring the line, Kevin Holland is now a minus 135. She started at a minus 175. A lot of action coming in on Jacare. I get it, to be honest with you. I'm torn on this fight. My gut kind of tells me Holland's going to be able to light him up on the feet, maybe get a knockout. Holland's been looking really good in there. And then I'm just worried that Jacare will get those takedowns. Could work his ground game. I definitely give the edge with the jiu-jitsu to Jacare, obviously, even though Holland is capable down there. But, it's a whole different game when you're talking about Jacare Souza. I'm really torn on this pick, man. But I'm going to take Kevin Holland. You don't really get a chance to grab Kevin Holland even around minus 135 right now. But I still don't know if that's necessarily a good bet because I could see Jacare spoiling the party. But Holland is talented. I'm going to give a slight edge to Kevin Holland right now. I want to see how these guys look throughout fight week. I want to keep an eye on this fight here. Because don't be surprised if Jacare uses his grappling to pull off a victory as well. All right? This is a close fight. You keep an eye on the line. And if you would have grabbed Jacare early, that might have been a solid idea there. All right, we got Renato Moicano taking on Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev is coming off a victory where he looked absolutely amazing against Mark Diakese. Rafael Fiziev is a striker, a very talented, flashy striker that's very strong. This isn't a guy you ain't going to just rip him down to the mat. Although if Moicano can get this fight down to the mat, I think he can shine with his grappling skills. He's putting a lot of time into the American Top Team Moicano. Moicano is a guy that a lot of people were extremely high on back in the day. Did have a couple setbacks, as you guys know. Obviously losing to Aldo. Aldo finished him. And then also losing to the Korean Zombie before bouncing back with the victory over Demir Hasnovic, which is not saying all that much. You know, the Moicano fight against Aldo, I was very surprised. That's where we saw that Aldo is still very much on this game. Everyone was sleeping on Aldo there. But Moicano was a little bit slow to the punch that night, and Aldo was a lot sharper, quicker, and crisp with his shots. Rafael Fiziev is also a guy that can do that. He's very crisp with his shots, and he's powerful. He's explosive. I kind of like what this guy brings to the table right now. As long as he can stuff people's takedowns and keep it a striking match, he's going to give a lot of people trouble. You know, the one setback where he was going into that fight as the favorite too, the Magomed Mustafayev fight. That was a fight where he got tagged. So he is susceptible. Of course, everybody's susceptible to being tagged and finished on the feet. You know, the Tiger Muay Thai product is a nasty fighter. He's only 27 years old. I'm taking Fiziev here. I think that he's going to be a better striker. I think he'll be strong enough to avoid any type of takedowns from Moicano. And I think Fiziev, we might start to see this guy start to hit his stride and really start to make a name for himself in the game. You know, these people from over here, man, they could fight, right? Possibly the best women's fighter in the world from over there, from Kyrgyzstan. And this dude is another one of those types of people, man. Just solid fighters from that part of the world. Moicano will have a half-inch reach. He's a little bit of the taller fighter. I don't think that's going to have too much of an impact on the fight. And we'll take Rafael Fiziev there. As far as the line, Fiziev is right around minus 145, minus 155. Moicano is a very, very capable fighter, so it's a dangerous fight to bet on. But if you think you see something, maybe some of you guys see some value on Moicano. He'll have the edge with the grappling. He can also strike as well. He's a very good striker. He puts a lot of volume out there. Maybe Moicano has better cardio as well as the fight goes to the later rounds. Those are all things to keep an eye on when you're looking into that fight and which side you want to go with that. Well, look who's back. El Kakui. Don't look under your bed. El Kakui's there. Tony Ferguson taking on Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. You guys know I'm very high on Charles Oliveira. I like to crown him the best submission artist that we've ever seen bless the octagon. I don't think it's a coincidence that he has the most submissions that we've ever seen in the most difficult division over the long haul. Maybe not right now, but over the long run, the lightweight division has been the most talented division. Charles Oliveira just keeps going in there, submitting guys left after right. He's coming into this fight with a 2-inch reach disadvantage, which isn't typical because El Kakui he's a freak. The 76-inch reach advantage. He's an animal. Let's talk about some pros and cons from each fighter, man, going into this fight. You know, Charles Oliveira, I'm going to give him the slight edge as far as the submission game goes. We saw what he did to Kevin Lee. That was a play of mine. I grabbed him at dog odds. I feel very good about that. I felt very good about that when I cashed the ticket. You know, that was a fight where I was very surprised to see everyone in on Kevin Lee there. Charles Oliveira is so nasty on the mat, man. If you go into his guard, you do anything like that, man, this guy will submit you in a second. We've seen him pull off calf slicers, arm bars, you name it, triangles, rear naked chokes, you know, everything. You know, Tony Ferguson is an excellent submission artist as well. I don't think Tony is as technical and as flashy, but Tony is also very good, though. I'm not trying to say that he's not. He's very, very good with his ground game. He's a little bit more brutal in there with his ground game. He mixes in his elbows. He'll hurt you, then he'll pull off a sub. I don't know. What can I say? I'm a big fan of Tony's as well. I think that this is such a good matchup. As far as the striking goes, I think that Oliveira is the more technical, polished Muay Thai fighter with better defense. But I think that Tony Ferguson is a lot tougher. He's a lot more durable. He has one of the best chins that I've ever seen in the game. So good luck for Oliveira to hurt him or take him out. Although sometimes you see these guys get beat up a lot, and all of a sudden you start to see that chin go. So keep an eye on that too. The amount of damage that Tony took in that last fight hasn't been a long time since that fight either. So I do, like I said, I think Charles is more technical and could possibly style on Tony there a little bit, can drop Tony with that low guard, but Tony will continuously walk him down. He'll work the kicks and he'll work the body as he walks forward, and he can easily break Charles Oliveira. We've seen Charles broken sometimes in the UFC. We've seen that in the past. Again, though, he's only 31 years old, and he was a young buck back in those days. You talk about, like, if you remember, like the Jim Miller fight, and he was losing to guys like Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis, Lamas, Paul Felder. But he was such a young kid, man, even back then. I shouldn't say a kid at this point, but he was young. He was a kid back then when he was losing to Swanson and Frankie Edgar. And again, these are all guys that are very good fighters. Everyone else, though, handled business against. But look, he lost to the big names. Jim Miller got that knee bar pulled off on him. Cerrone finished him. Cub, Frankie. Strung off 4 victories in a row. All well polishing up his game, though, to get to the point now where he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak. Taking out guys like Jared Gordon, that was impressive. Kevin Lee, David Tamer is a good fighter, got his redemption on Jim Miller. Christos Giagos, the guy we had on the show, he's a good fighter. And he's styled on these guys. I'm not a big fan of Tony Ferguson's striking defense, really his striking in general. The thing that he can do, though, is just break his opponents. If he's going to win this fight, Tony has to break his opponent here in Charles Oliveira. And Charles has to avoid being broken and just go out there and use his skills to win the fight. And I'm going to pick the dog, Charles Oliveira, here. I'm going to pick the dog, Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is right around a plus 150 right now. It's a very tough fight. I mean, I could easily just say Tony Ferguson wins this fight. You want to go that route, but I'm picking the dog. Picking Charles, do Bronx. Right, that brings us to the main event, which is going to be a very, very exciting fight. You guys already know that. Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. Both these guys just fought, both on the same fight card, and they're throwing them right back in there. Didn't even want to send them home. They're keeping them around. We just talked about Figueiredo. After he pulls off that victory now against Alex Perez, that was a fight I really wanted to see play out longer than it was able to. But props to Figueiredo for finishing the fight with the submission there, the guillotine. I think Figueiredo is a very flashy, talented fighter, but I do think his time will come eventually. As I said, we saw him. I thought he lost to Jared Brooks back in the day. I know that was an old fight, though, but still. I thought Jared Brooks was able to use his wrestling to win that fight. Brandon Moreno is a strong fighter, man. He's a strong grappler. As a Mexican fighter, more of a flashy striker with some jiu-jitsu skills. He's actually quite strong with his wrestling and his grappling too. So if Moreno can avoid those flashy submissions from Figueiredo, if he avoids being knocked out, I think Moreno could really give him a run for his money. Moreno has been proving me that he's a solid fighter. I've been picking against him here and there. I definitely picked Brandon Royval to win that fight, and I would have liked to see that fight fully play out. But Royval had his shoulder popped out when that fight was really just starting to pick up. Shout out to Royval. That guy is so exciting and so talented. In this fight, even though I said all what I just said, I still got to pick Figueiredo. I do think the line is off. The line is very high. I think Brandon Moreno can easily go out there and win this fight if you're looking for like a value play to target. But Figueiredo is just nasty. I'm going to give him the edge with his striking. And as far as the jiu-jitsu goes too, I'm going to give Figueiredo the slight edge there. But Moreno is capable. Moreno is very, very capable. This was the war he had with Royval for as long as it lasted. But this was the victory over Alex Perez, which was a spectacular finish. And now he's really looking to make a name for himself in Figueiredo with the nasty guillotine, which Alex Perez's head was so close to slipping out. I'm picking Figueiredo to win the fight there. And he's an entertaining fighter. I'm really excited for that fight. All right, guys. Hope I didn't talk too much for you guys. As always, I'll try to get the timestamps on these immediately. I know some of you guys comment. I always try to get them on within the day that I post them or relatively soon. I'll have this video up to you here in a second. And like I said, if you guys go follow me over on my other YouTube channel, I would highly recommend if you guys hit the subscribe button over there, as well as here if you haven't yet. Sports Betting Weekly. I'm going to attach the link here in the bio, right by the timestamp. So I have the link there. Go check me out. I'm telling you, I'm going to give you guys some free football plays. And I will periodically be posting some free MMA plays there too, man. But it's going to be different. I'm not going to do an in-depth breakdown of the events like I do here. It'll just be, I'll pop out a little fight, and I'm going to say, here's a free play for you guys. It's a play I'm targeting, because I'll be giving my plays out to my audience over there for all my, my full sports people that like all types of sports. All right? You guys know my bread and butter, and my heart's always with the UFC game. Oh, man, this is where it's at. This is where it's really at. But I just want to expand my horizons a little bit. So appreciate all your guys' support. And all that being said, you guys all have a great start to your week over here. It's Monday. The holiday season has begun. And we're going to make this a good month, man. We're going to be making profitable weekend after profitable weekend leading into 2021, where we'll really start to turn things up. Hopefully 2021 will be a much better year. And we'll get right back to things, all right? All right, guys. You guys all have an excellent rest of your week. And on that note, signing out, the teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.